So following on from our introduction there, we're going to look in a little bit more detail now at residence and domicile, and we will be exploring them separately. So we'll start by looking at residence and then we'll move on to domicile. I think it's important to recognise though that one of the most common questions you'll get in RO3 in connection with residence and domicile is where you'll be given a scenario and asked to determine what HMRC are most likely to view an individual's residence status or an individual's domicile status. So residence is where you are now, very easily changed. Just go and live somewhere else in the world, or come here if you live somewhere else in the world. It is essentially temporary, and basically many of us will have multiple residences throughout our life, particularly if we travel around the world to work. This genuinely influences income tax and CGT. There are some reasons when domicile influences income tax and CGT, but in the main, our liabilities to income tax or CGT, and whether we owe tax or not, will largely be dictated to by our residence. Domicile, on the other hand, is where we're essentially from, where we consider home to be. It is much more permanent and much harder to change than residence, and many of us will not change our domicile throughout our lifetimes. This genuinely or generally influences inheritance tax. So whereas it can influence income tax and CGT, largely, certainly for this exam anyway, your domicility questions are likely to be influenced by inheritance tax, income tax, and CGT is likely to be influenced by residence questions. So we're going to learn some new terminology, if we haven't already learnt this terminology before, when it comes to residence. And some of the things we're going to explore in the coming slides to do with residence and domicile are things such as, for residence, the test of residence and the sufficient ties test. This is largely where it is perhaps not clear where our residence lies in a particular tax year, and will help us go through a flowchart really as much as anything else to determine that. And we'll also get to learn about the deeming rule, which is just for those people that perhaps live in the UK but don't, or work in the UK should I say, but don't live here near in the UK, which has become increasingly easier over the years. And then we're going to look at the certain things in domicility. Some of the terminology we'll learn about is domicile of origin, domicile of choice, where we wish to make a change of domicile, deemed domicile, where the change is made for us, and we'll also look at the remittance and arising basis, which is broadly about our income and gains tax, and where we pay that if we've got income from multiple locations around the world. So quite a lot to consider here. The CII manual is really quite difficult to follow and difficult to read from here. It's quite complex. I think we need to take a little bit of a chill pill through this and recognise that actually the bark is worse than the bite. And if you understand the basics here, then hopefully you'll have enough to get the one or two questions that you'll get in this area correct in your exam.